Hello, I'm going to tell you today about the options for aggregate level decline analysis in future. So that's talking about decline analysis not on the well by well level, but at the reservoir or field or polygon or whatever other group that you would wish to look at. And I'm going to talk about two methods. The first method is to continue with the fitting of decline curves on a well by well basis, but then to look at the resultant profile and their decline at the aggregate level. And that's generally our recommended course of action. If that proves unsatisfactory, then there's another option, is to create a future model where using pseudo-wells corresponding to the aggregate that you want to fit the decline analysis to. And in that, you can not only see the declines, but you can also fit the declines to the aggregate level. And I'll give a demonstration of that. There are various options in future to make that a straightforward job. So in the database here that I've got, we've got two models, and let's start with the well by well model. Okay, so this is one of our demonstration cases that you may have seen before, and we've got 313 producers, although some of them are are shut in and so on, or abandoned. Okay, so now in this particular example, we've just got a single. We're just looking at a single forecast of just the existing production, and in a well by well form, you may well have done the decline analysis by wells, and then what you can do in future is you can look at for example, at the reservoirs. You can look at the forecast with historical, first of all, in that form, but then also in the decline curve form of rates versus cumulative, or indeed, if you wanted, you could look at it in terms of exponential, in terms of logarithm rates versus time by changing the axis here to logarithmic. So those methods, so use of these plots, enable you to carry out a QC of the aggregate level decline. Now, it could be the case that the grouping that you're interested in doesn't correspond to the reservoir or the node, in which case you may want to define your own additional grouping, and that can be done using categorizations. So you would add a categorization, and here we've defined one, which is the combination of reservoir and pad, and you define what the categories are, and then you allocate each well to a particular categorization, and then that gives you then you get the forecast and the historical for this group. So again, you can view it in terms of you can QC what the decline is at this aggregate level. The creation of these aggregates, incidentally, can be speeded up by using the option category membership from Excel list, and the entity there, the dialog there gives you some more details. Okay, so that's how you would go ahead if you just wanted to QC your decline analysis at the aggregate level. If you found that wasn't satisfactory and you decided that you wanted to fit decline curves to, to the polygon or to the reservoir or whatever, then what you need to do is you need to shift to change your future model or create a new future model with pseudo-wells corresponding to the aggregates. We wouldn't recommend that you do this in the same model that you've also got your actual, you've got wells corresponding to the actual wells. The reason for that is there's too much of a danger of double counting and everything. Now, and then the model with the, so we'll open we'll open the aggregate model that we prepared earlier. So here we've got the well elements that correspond to these pad and reservoir combinations that we had in the previous model. Now, one point to note is you need to tell your aggregate model that you're using, that it needs to point to use a historical spectre that contains the aggregate profiles. So not just the well profiles, but also the profiles for these aggregates. Now those can be generated externally, or you can use an option within Future. So if we go back to the well by well model, there is an option for Future to gently working from a historical spectre that contains the well by well profiles to generate all the aggregate historical profiles. This is normally done, on the fly whenever you want to display them, but Future's got the option for you to save it as a spectre, and then that can be used by your aggregate level model. And that's a simple option here. You just press C. I'll just quickly demonstrate it. And then that has generated forecasts for all of these, all the fields, all the reservoirs, all the nodes, and so on. And if we go there, so this is a newly created aggregate historical. You'll see we've got all these profiles, including the field and so on. Okay, so coming back to the aggregate, the model where we've got pseudo wells corresponding to the aggregates. There you'll see that it operates much the same way as it does with your conventional wells. So you can fit a decline curve to this aggregate. One thing to note, if you have generated the historical spectre using that option I was just showing about, in other words, saving the aggregate historical profiles for Future model, you'll notice that Future also reports what the producing well count is over time. And with this way, we can make comparisons, because we can here we can compare the reservoir level forecasts and so on from the aggregate one to the well by well one and so on. Another thing to note is that when you are setting up, if you are switching to a well by an aggregate level model, you'll have to create these pseudo wells, and it's something that is some functionality that's useful for that is if you've prepared a list of your aggregates in Excel, you can quickly create the required wells in your new future model by going to import create wells from Excel list, or indeed you can create them using the new import entity properties from Excel. Okay, well, thank you for your time.